Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of Talking TV with my mum, the Geek-Dom Roundup review show where we chat about various genre/geeky TV shows. So in this week's episode, we have a couple more things to talk about. We will be talking about Lucifer, we will be talking about Fear the Walking Dead, which has returned unexpectedly for us. We will be talking about Good Omens, the first episode, and we will also be talking about the most recent episode of Agents of SHIELD. So that's the agenda. I would just like to say thank you once again for joining us and taking the time out of your day to listen to our podcast, and I hope that you enjoy our discussion. Don't forget to let us know your thoughts in the comments, because we always love to hear from you and it's interesting getting different perspectives. So if you can drop some comments down below, that would be great. And also, if you enjoyed the podcast, hit that thumbs up button and leave us a like. And also subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. That would mean the world to me and to us if you help expand this geekdom of ours. And in my description box, you will find not only information about the podcast and timestamps, but also the link to my Twitter. So if you want to come and follow and chat to me on there, you can do. And also there are links to my donation medium. So if you want to help support me and the channel and the future, then you can either go to my Patreon or to my Ko-fi and just drop whatever you can. You know, there's no pressure. Just do what you can. If you can't, that's fine too. So there we go. So that's the housekeeping. So I will say welcome to my co-host. So hello, Mum. How are you?
Hello, Dom. Yes, I'm fine, thank you.
Good, good. We got obviously the last podcast went up very late this time because of audio issues and me being backed up with various things that I had to do. But we got it there, and obviously you've had a listen and you think it sounds okay and stuff.
Yeah, it was good.
That's good.
I started listening to it when I went to bed, and then I got tired, so I turned it off and then listened to the rest this morning.
Well, because it hasn't been up very long, we can't do what we've started doing over the last couple of podcasts, which is sort of talk about some comments we've had. But we did have one comment already, so we can mention this. So got a comment from Plastered Koala again. He said, "Wow, dude, such an awesome episode. Really enjoy listening to both of you talk about these shows. Those 2 episodes of Lucifer were great, though. The part where the guy kills himself made me a bit sick. Haha. Eve's character also started to annoy me by the end of the second episode that you discussed. I still haven't seen the other show yet, but I might have to look into it soon." So I said to him, yeah, you need to, even if you just watch that one episode.
That episode from last week.
Because it was really, really good. And yeah, so that's the only comment we've had, obviously outside of your comment, but you know, we haven't had any other feedback, but that's because the podcast at the time of recording this one, the podcast has only been up for 12 hours or something because of how late I managed to get it up on the channel. So hopefully we'll get more through, and then what we might do is, if there's any standout ones, we'll recap them when we next record, along with any ones that we get for today's podcast.
Yeah, sounds like fun.
But yeah, that was cool. I thought it was cool that, that Koala sort of jumped straight in and watched it pretty much as soon as it went up and then left a comment. So that was cool. So thank you very much for that. We appreciate you actually sort of giving us some of your thoughts.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, so that's basically it in a nutshell. So hopefully we won't have the same level of issues this week with the audio as we did last week. Okay, so unless you've got anything further to add, we will get underway.
Yeah, let's get going.
Let's get underway then. So we will talk about this week's episode of Lucifer. So as we've mentioned before, even though the whole series is available on Netflix, we're doing it as a week-to-week thing. So this was episode 5, and it's called Expire, Erect. It opened in a really weird way, in that you heard some noises and stuff, and I was thinking, oh, what's going on here? Is it going to be Lucifer and Eve in the bedroom? And it opened up, and it looked like he'd had a bit of a party going on, and there was stuff everywhere. And then Chloe looking at a baguette and talking about how she'd worked it out and stuff, and I was like, what is going on? And then all of a sudden, and then it said, was it 36 hours earlier or something? So it was one of those ones where it started at a certain point, but then we got to go backwards in time to earlier on to work out how we got to where we ended up. And it was all to do with the basis of this episode. Again, in keeping with them doing a theme, the theme this week was to do with closure. So we had a guy who was like a vintage car collector or something had been killed, and they were called to the case, and they were there on the scene, obviously thinking about what what they needed to do here. And Ella knows loads about vintage cars, and she knew about this exclusive organization where all these car enthusiasts meet up. And she said, oh, it's really hard to get in there. And they had a couple of the neighbors sort of say, oh, I heard him arguing, or I saw him with this person. So they had some suspicions as to who might be the murderer, but obviously it wasn't clear. So they said, we need to go to this show. How are we going to get in? And then that was the lead in of like, well, it will be Lucifer. So that was the setup for the crime, but we also had the bit at the club where Lucifer's sat in his boxer shorts, playing the piano, smoking a cigarette and having a whiskey. And Eve came in and she said, my costume, a me costume arrived, look. And it was her in like the leaves and things that you traditionally see the pictures of,
the
like
traditional Eve,
yeah. And she was like, look, I got a me costume, which was quite funny. And she was sort of pestering him, and sort of, she took his cigarette and sat next to him at the piano, and he was trying to sort of concentrate, and he seemed a little bit distracted by everything. And then she said about coming back to bed, and I think she said that, like, he was the best boyfriend she'd had or something, and he went a bit weird when she said that, like, boyfriend. And I think then it didn't really dwell too much on that scene, did it? It then went, like, he went to see Linda.
Yeah, he went to see Linda because he was worried about it all, and she was saying that he needed to have closure on things.
Because because of the way things had ended between him and Chloe, but they hadn't really capped it off properly.
Yeah,
so
and he was saying, oh, it's lovely having Eve, but he said the sex is great, but it's usually a big Ben 10. So he's saying, it's clearly not, we're not, it's nothing more than that to him, but she's saying boyfriend, so he's thinking, I'm not sure where I'm going with this. Didn't Chloe come, did he not go back to the house, and she went to get him and said, Lucifer, we need you for this case, and caught him with his sitting in his boxers?
No, not quite. It was close
that
to
after
that. So
yeah, well,
we had all the stuff,
trousers down.
Yeah, all the stuff with Linda and Lucifer and stuff and Eve. That all happened initially, and then you had the bit with the case kick off, and then that was what Ella was like. The only way we can get it, well, we know somebody, and Chloe was like, oh yeah, with somebody that might be able to help because Lucifer's got flash cars and things. So maybe that's the way to get back in with him, is to go and get him to help with this case. So she went over to Lux, and she just happened to come in at the point where Eve was trying to get Lucifer to come back to the bedroom again. So he was like, okay. So he pulled his trousers down, and he said about like Big Ben again, and then he went dong as he pulled his trousers down. And she walked in just at that moment, and she was like,
yeah, that's right.
Like that. And then he went, detective, and he like pulled his trousers up really quickly. Oh, it was so funny. Oh, that was brilliant. It really, really made me laugh. And then she said, I'm sorry, you're busy. And he said, no, it's fine. And then said because he'd spoke to Linda about the closure thing, when she said about helping with the case, he jumped at the chance straight away. And he was like, yes, of course, it's not important. I can go now and stuff like that. So he decided to go with her and help her on what in his mind was going to be their final case.
Exactly. So they had a suspect.
Yeah.
Was that where they had the suspect, and he picked a tire up and threw it at him?
Yeah, because they went
just like,
I
want to conclude this as quickly as possible. I know, and he was running or something, and he chucks this tire at him or something.
That's right, yeah, because they'd said, well, you can't just go in there all guns blazing. So they went in there under the guise of obviously Lucifer being a car enthusiast. And then when they saw the bloke that had been involved in the car sort of purchase and things, and he was the one that had sent the murder victim a message about, I'm going to kill you, they were like, that's the guy. And so Lucifer just shouted it out. There was no tact. He was just like, that man is wanted by the police. And so he ran, and so it's like, and he was like, why did you do that? And he said, well, this is the bit, detective. This is the bit where, you chase the suspect and I stand here and do nothing, and then I watch you run around for a minute, and then I help you stop the person. So he's like, off you go. So she went after him, and then, like you said, yeah, he picked up a car tire and actually threw it at the guy and knocked him down. And then he was like, you're the guy, you're guilty, blah, 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 blah. And then he was like, no. And then he said, let me do my thing again, detective. And she's like, okay. And he said, just for old time's sake. And then he did the, tell me what you desire. And then the man just basically said that he made kit cars. So he was like, "Oh, you're a disgusting individual," and he's like, "Hey, it's not my fault. There's schmucks out there that don't know the difference between a real vintage car and a fake one." And then when he said about the killing him, he said, "I meant his reputation. I was going to kill his reputation because he'd actually bought a couple of these kit cars off me. So I was going to kill his reputation, not kill him really." And then he mentioned about there was someone else, and he said he's a scary dude, he's a big guy, bald head, and all of this lot, but he didn't know his name or anything. So it was like, okay, so the case isn't over. So it's like, right, let's go and see this guy then. And then,
Yeah, because sorry, carry on.
I was just going to say, in the meantime, you also had the bit where Ella learned about Eve, about this girl that was staying with Lucifer and stuff. So she actually went to see her, didn't she? But that happened a bit for like she talked about it and she was like, oh, she got a bit uppity about the fact that there's this other woman and she's not just like a fling of Lucifer, she's staying there and stuff. So she had it in her mind that she was going to go over there, and that sort of tied in with the bit that happened a little bit further into the episode.
Yeah, we also had a bit where I call him Amen because I can't pronounce the name.
Yeah.
Amen wasn't happy that Eve was back.
Yes, because he stopped by to see Lucifer, didn't he?
Yeah, and she was there.
And he was
And
very
he said
surprised.
He didn't want him to go back to who he was because he knows if he's with her, she'll want him to be the devil, basically, again, evil.
Yeah.
And obviously, now he's moving on with his life. He doesn't want Lucifer to go backwards either.
Mm-hmm.
That was quite an interesting meet-up.
And it was interesting, he brought up about Cain as well, and he said, you do realise that he killed Cain. And she sort of went a bit, and she said, but then she was like, it was more Abel she was sad about, and she said, my poor sweet Abel. And then she said, well, these things have to happen. And then she mentioned about Charlotte Richards and that she'd seen her when she was leaving heaven. So it was a nice little connection back to the previous season. And yeah, he was not happy about the fact that she's shown back up again. So there was that. There was also the bit, was there not also the bit where, because Dan was also working the case, his new partner in crime, who likes this new badass version of Dan, went to visit him in Maze. She went to see him, and she was talking about them working together and stuff. And he basically said, look, that was what we did before, but we have to go by the book. We have to do things the right way. If you're going to work with me, you have to do things our way. And she was not happy about that. She was like, we got results last time because we did it my way, and now you're wanting to backtrack on me. Because didn't she sort of give him, she was a bit flirty with him, wasn't she, as well, and sort of saying, well, anytime you want to hook up sort of thing. And he was like, oh, okay. This is a bit, I wasn't sort of expecting this from you,
No.
So
did we not, we have the bit then where there was something at the club? So Ella went to the club.
Well,
and met up with Eve.
No, just before that, you had the bit where they went to investigate this other person, and then they found him dead as well. And they were like, wait, okay, so the other person that we thought was the suspect, he's dead. And so then they looked into it, and they found out that they were all connected in that 3 of them had been in prison together. They were all army people. They were to do with the bomb squad and stuff. Right. And they'd all, once they'd left service, as a lot of, again, it's an interesting little bit of social commentary in the way that a lot of ex-veterans, a lot of ex-servicemen in America, when they leave service, they don't know what to do with themselves anymore. They feel they're not looked after properly by the government and things like that. So these 3 guys turned to crime, and they did, was it a bank robbery?
Yeah, bank robbery, yeah.
And then only one of them got the most time for it. So the other 2 got to live their lives, and this other guy went to prison. So they were like, that's the connection, is that they all knew each other previously because of this, their service background and also this robbery. So there's this 3rd guy, and I think his name was Marco or something.
So it turned out the first dead guy and the one that the original suspect were both his accomplices, and he'd actually killed them. Yeah.
And again, it tied into the whole thing of closure of their past history, that clearly somebody was looking for closure in this relationship. So again, it tied into the theme that we had running through the whole episode. So that's then when Lucifer, because at the time they were like, we've cracked the case, that's it, we solved it. It was only when they looked into it a bit further they found out there was more to it. But because they thought at the time they'd cracked the case, Lucifer's like, that's it, I'm going now then. And he said he'd ordered a burger van outside for them all to have burgers. And then he said about having a like farewell party sort of thing at Lux. Everybody was invited and things like that. So that's why Ella ended up at the club.
Yeah, that's right, because he was doing I've finished with the FBI now, so let's go and have a final fling at the club.
Yeah.
And obviously, yeah, she went there, but she was feeling a bit down, wasn't she, herself? So she started drinking quite a lot.
Well, we've seen this so far this season, is that
a torment between her religion, wasn't it?
Yeah, she's still struggling with all of that. So she was a bit pissed off too, because Chloe's her friend, and she's thinking, there's this other girl, I'm going to go and suss her out and everything. And then she met Eve, and Eve was charming with her, and she was like, oh, I love you. And she gave her a hug, and she's like, oh, that's not fair. You're winning me over with hugs. That's my one weakness and stuff. And then she was like, let's get a drink together. And then she said, I got given these sweets. And she was like, they're not sweets, they're mollies. And she's like, oh okay. Yeah. And then she was like, well, and then she convinced her to take them. And then she was like, do you want one too? And then Ella was like, well, yeah, okay, why not? So they took drugs together. So that was really funny, because then
dancing and canoodling with each other.
and they were just like really praising each other. Oh, your hair's beautiful. Oh, you're such a lovely person. Oh, this, that was so funny, because they're so similar in the way that they're both quite ditzy in certain ways, and they're both quite sort of cute and bubbly. So it was quite funny the way they bonded, considering that Ella originally had been very anti-Eve because Chloe's my friend and you're the other woman sort of thing.
So in the meantime, so that was happening, and obviously then Chloe turned up and said the case isn't closed.
Yes.
And so that's how she ended up at the club.
And before they had the chance to leave, this guy shows up. And he had a gun, and he said that the place was rigged. He'd rigged the place with explosives, and that he was basically the third man. He was Marco, and he was holding them all hostage. And then Lucifer went to sort of approach him, and he shot him.
Yeah.
And then obviously, because Chloe's there, he was shot.
He's bleeding out.
He's bleeding.
Yeah, he's bleeding out. So then the guy said what he wanted is his wife. He wanted his wife to come there so he could apologise to her for what he'd done, basically. The thing about the food came about, that's how the food came about, didn't it?
Yes. Because of getting a food delivery, they wanted to try and get the food delivery. Because that was Dan's idea.
Yeah, because he was on the outside, wasn't he?
Yeah, and they were coordinating with the SWAT team, and he said, I don't want your guys going in heavy-handed. We've got some of our people in there. If this guy really has got the place rigged to blow, we've got to tackle this a different way. So they said about arranging a food. The guy wanted food, so they were going to arrange a food delivery, and then they were going to see that if that could be their extraction point or something.
That's it. Yeah, that's right. And so obviously in the meantime, then Dan and Maze decided to go and find the wife, didn't they, themselves? While
and then we had a brilliant moment, which you guys will be looking at the moment, because this is the image for this episode, where Maze she did her investigations and found all these links to this like tech company and stuff, and so she went in there, and there was this poor girl sat at her computer, and Maze walks over to her, and she's all sexy, menacing Maze. So she goes over and does her thing, and she's sort of, threatening this woman. The girl's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I just do computer work. I don't make fake IDs and things like that. And she's like, yeah, it's always the ones you least expect. And she straddles her. She gets on the desk and, straddles over her. And the girl looks really uncomfortable. And Maze is just sat there being, just being Maze, being intimidating and stuff. And she's saying all this stuff about exposing your secrets, and the girl's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I just do fan subs for anime and all of this lot. And then she's like, I know it's not really you. I was just using you to flush out the real bad guy.
Yeah, the person that ran out the office, wasn't it?
Yeah. So this poor girl, she traumatized her. And then obviously Dan was waiting outside, so when this guy ran, they had the ambush set up to get him. And it was because... The reason they did that was because they discovered that when these guys went to prison and stuff, the woman went into hiding. She wanted to separate herself from everything, so she changed her personality.
Identity,
she had no footprint. She had no digital footprint. She had no social security number or anything like that. So they found this link about somebody back in that era, that I think it was 2014 or something, that made these fake IDs and stuff, and that was what led them to this tech company and to this guy. So
Yeah.
that's why they ended up there. But then as a result of that, they got the information they needed in order to be able to track down this woman.
Yeah.
The other thing we had, which we quickly skipped over actually, before Lucifer and Chloe were going to leave the club, and before the bomber gunman showed up, she also had a conversation with Eve, and it dawned on her that Eve was Eve, as in from the Bible.
Yeah.
And she was like, "Oh my God, you're the Eve," and she went, as in Lucifer's ex-girlfriend, like from the beginning of time. And she's like, "Yeah, and you're Chloe," and she was like, "Oh, you're amazing. Lucifer's always talking about you, and you're so good." And later on, she sort of said something to her, didn't she, where she was like, "If anybody can solve this, it's you. Lucifer always says that you're the most intelligent, most capable person he knows," and things like that.
Mm. They also found out the guy had wired the club. There was a bomb.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, well, I mentioned that, didn't I? That he said he'd wired the whole place to blow. So that's why they had to be careful in how they were going in to try and rescue everybody.
And the only person that could try and defuse the bomb was Ella.
But unfortunately, Ella was off her face because she had taken the drugs. So they said, well, we're working against the clock here, because not only are we trying to sort out this bad guy, we also don't.
That's why the food.
Yeah, so that was why the food.
So the food comes. That's a distraction. They got then upstairs, didn't they? Just about.
Yeah.
Two of them, because what's her name? Eve said she'd go with her.
Yeah.
So the two of them went upstairs to where the bomb was. So that was, he didn't see them leave the room. Mm-hmm. That's what that distraction was for, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So while they were trying to, that was hilarious.
Because you had
them trying to work this bomb out.
That's when, obviously, like you said, it tied back to the beginning bit where she's holding this sandwich up and going, "I figured it out. I know what it all means now." And it was that's their plan. That's Dan's plan from the outside, was the using the sandwich, because obviously her being a cop too, she worked out the logic of why they had the sandwich delivery. But yeah, Ella obviously was off her face, and so because you had all these things going on, it was like, well, the race against time, we've got to stop this guy, make sure he doesn't blow the club up, and also Lucifer's dying because of Chloe being there, so we need to try and get him help. The only person that can defuse the bomb is Ella, but she's off her face, so Lucifer said, the only way, she was like, we need to sober her up, Lucifer, how do we do it? And he produced a bag of cocaine and said, "You have to give her this." So I was thinking, poor old Ella is just getting pumped full of drugs.
Definitely all against her religion.
I know. Oh, it's so funny.
Also, because Dan and Maze found the woman, didn't they?
Yeah.
And they persuaded her that she was to talk to him on the tannoy, to say she was outside and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And then what happened?
Well, she went in, didn't she? She actually was able
to go in.
She said, "No, I'm
going in." Yeah, but they didn't want her to just go in on her own, did they? They said, we'll get you to talk to him and then let him see you. But they were supposed to be there with her so they could grab him. And then she just went in on her own.
And she went in and obviously had this reunion, and the husband, the bomber guy, was like, he did all this to draw her out, and he was really sorry and everything. And she went to hug him, and then the next thing you heard this noise, and then he went, and then when she pulled away, he had a knife stuck in him.
Yeah.
And then she pulled the gun out, and it turned out she was actually the real baddie, because she was the one that was behind the robbery, and that she had arranged for him to take the fall for it. And now that obviously he was back on the scene again, it was bringing stuff back up, and she was worried that obviously it would lead to her. So it was like, oh my God, that was a bit of a twist.
That was a big twist, that bit.
Didn't see that coming at all.
No.
So then
luckily the girls defused the bomb.
Yeah, because Ella was then overly stimulated by the cocaine, her and Eve went off to defuse the bomb. So that was funny, having that scene with them two working together to try and defuse the bomb. And while that was going on, Lucifer passed out. Chloe was then trying to deal with the wife, and she, knowing obviously what their plan was now, she managed to lure her over to the far side. And I think, did she not even make a comment? Like the woman said, "You're not going to stop me," or something. And she said, "No, I know that. I was just trying to get you over to the southwest corner." And then there was an explosion, which knocked them all flying.
Yeah.
And that was because that was where where the SWAT team breached the building.
Yeah, and they grabbed her, didn't they? And
then she before they grabbed her, she tried to detonate the bomb, but luckily, just in the nick of time...
Oh, yeah, she was like pressing and go, "Don't worry, I've got a fail-safe," or something like that.
Yeah.
So the thing, and then just as she did, it just went clunk, because they just managed to defuse it. It's in time, didn't they?
Yeah. But
It's like,
she went to do that. The other two had defused the bomb. Chloe, in a sense, like sort of a preservation thing, dived over and like to try and protect Lucifer.
mm,
And then when all the when the smoke cleared, figuratively, and the SWAT team got they got the ex-wife. Ella and Eve emerged victorious, and then Eve looked over and saw Chloe laid on top of Lucifer, and the explosion and everything that had all sort of like jolted him back, and he was like, "Oh, detective," and he was like, "You tried to save me," and they had like a moment there, and Eve was obviously watching this from a distance, and then he basically said that wouldn't be the last time they worked together after that.
No, he had his closure, but then he still wanted to work with her.
Yeah, because it was closure, but it developed things in a slightly different direction of like, well, maybe there is something there, because they got to a point as well, weird point, where they were then almost like trying to stall it from being over. They were trying to stall the case from closing, so they'd sort of rushed to try and get through it, but then they were like, oh, but maybe, we need to do this thing, and then it was like, yeah, that means we can keep working together, and then in the end, obviously, it turned out, no, I do still want to keep working with you. He also then acknowledged the fact that Eve was his girlfriend, which was interesting. And then you had that bit at the end where he was recovered and he was with Eve again. And what were they? Were they having breakfast or something? And he cut his finger, and then but then it healed straight away. And then she had a light bulb moment of like, wait, you healed straight away now, but you didn't heal straight away.
You didn't.
Yeah. And then it was the thing about Chloe being his Achilles heel. And obviously on learning that, then it was that moment of she now knows that Chloe is the thing that makes Lucifer vulnerable.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's almost like, cause obviously, he basically, his closure with Chloe was like, yeah, we aren't ever going to be together. Because didn't it go on at the end? That's what I said. He decided, no, I've closed my relationship, because that's what his difficulty was. He could work with her, but because he sort of really wanted to be with her, he couldn't do that as well. So then he decided, no, Eve is the one I should be with.
Yeah.
But yeah, now she knows that he's only vulnerable when Chloe's around. So I thought, is that not a good thing, is it? Telling her that.
Yeah, that concerned me. I thought, now I'm worried that now she knows this, she's going to think, well, as long as Chloe's around, that's always going to mean that Lucifer potentially could be in danger. So maybe because there was that thing where they were trying to work out earlier on when they were talking about Eve, and they were like, is she evil? Has she got an agenda? Has she got this? Has she got, is she the bad guy sort of thing? And it was like, no, she's none of those things. But now I wonder whether she might become that character because of what she knows about Chloe and the threat that she poses to Lucifer.
Yeah.
And it'll be that whole crazy ex-girlfriend thing of like, oh, but, he's my man, and as long as you're around, he's at risk, and things like that. So...
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a really good episode. And like I said, the theme running through it is really good that I've been picking up... I mean, they've always had this to a degree throughout all of the seasons of Lucifer. There's always been a theme where the case ties into something that's really going on with the rest of the characters. But I've noticed it even more this season. Like, it's really, really at the forefront of, like, this is the theme of the episode and how it all ties things together.
Yeah.
In connection to Lucifer as well, now that we've discussed the episode, I just heard it's been renewed for a 5th and final season.
Oh, final. They're doing a final now then.
So they're gonna have a 5th season, but it's gonna close out the season like fully. It's gonna give people a proper ending and stuff like that. But yeah, it will be the finale season.
Yeah. Oh well.
But that's good in a way. It's good that they're gonna end it properly rather than. But before all this Netflix thing, when it got just cancelled.
Well, yeah, because we had a big reveal at the end of the season. And then we had they were going to just finish it like that. Oh, I am the devil. And then like, okay, so haven't we got we need another season to explain how she deals with that now.
Yeah.
She's finally realised he is the devil, even though he's been saying it for God knows how long.
Yeah. And
I know it's sad it'll finish, but like you say, we don't mind if they finish it properly.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's good. So at least, and it's been so much more content in these episodes so far.
Yeah.
Like I said, there's been more character development for all the other characters in the show as well, which has made it more exciting. And there's more to watch. Like you said, there's more to it.
Yeah.
So shame those writers, whoever writes it now, weren't on board previously. It might not have got cancelled anyway.
Well, yeah, that's true.
But hey, that was good though.
But yes, it was very good. So there we go. So that's Lucifer. So more Lucifer next week. So now we move on to an unexpected episode, because you and I were both expecting it to be next week, or well, like this weekend coming. So it took us by surprise. And when you messaged me out of the blue and said, Fear the Walking Dead is back, and I'm like, what? Really? So yeah, Fear the Walking Dead. It came back for the first episode of season 5.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, right, I'm going to say something to begin with. I thought the ending was really weird. The beginning was really weird and really kind of slightly cheesy, because do you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of the A-Team. It was because you had Morgan's voiceover and they were recapping events from last season, and it was Morgan talking intercut with all these like highlights of last season. And he was like basically saying, you know, like, wherever you are, we'll find you and we'll help you. And in my head, I was thinking, it's like the beginning of the A-Team where they sort of say, you know, you might just be able to hire the A-Team. And then I was like sat there thinking, all it needs now is to go, da, 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 da.
Fool!
Yeah, but I just thought, what a weird way to begin the episode. It was really strange, and the fact that it just made me think of the A-Team. But yeah, that was quite funny. And we
didn't me, but yeah,
it opened on 2 little boys.
Yes.
And did you recognise the littler of the 2 boys?
No.
Because we've seen him before.
Who is he?
Well, I was looking at this and I was thinking, I recognise that little boy. I've seen him in something. So I looked it up, obviously, as I do. And he was Oz in American Horror Story. So you know when it was the Sarah Paulson, and it was her I think it was in the cult one with
Yeah, the son, the 2 mums.
Yeah, the 2 mums, and he was the son.
Oh, of course it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
thinking about it now. Oh.
So I was like, it's the little boy that was in American Horror Story. Because I kept thinking he's so familiar. I've seen him in something, but I can't think of what I've seen him in. And then when I looked him up, I was like, oh, and he's not the only person from another thing, something else that showed up in this episode, but we'll talk about that when we come to it. But yeah, so we had these 2 little boys, and he was obviously the older brother trying to teach the younger brother how to shoot a gun. And there was a lot of build up, and he was like, oh, you just need to stand like this and breathe and this, that and the other. And then he got him to fire and they shot a deer, didn't they?
Yeah. Yeah, they shot the deer, then they ran towards the deer to get the deer.
Yeah.
And then an aeroplane flew over and crashed.
Well, no, then a walker appeared, and they were...
Oh, yeah, the walker appeared first, didn't it?
And he was saying, don't worry, I've got this. And then the gun was jamming, and the zombie was getting closer and closer and closer to them. And then all of a sudden there was this loud noise, and then a plane appeared and like hit the trees, so part of the wing fell off and stuff, and the zombie got sliced in half, and then it was crawling along the ground towards them. And the plane crashed, and it was like, what the hell just happened? Like, who are these kids, and where did this plane come from?
Yeah. And then there was more zombies, wasn't there? And the poor little boys.
Yeah, there were lots of zombies.
So many zombies, and there's like, that just happened. Then all the zombies, because of the noise, came out of the woods, and then they don't know what to do. And then suddenly somebody came to save them. Yeah,
one of the zombies that got close to them, out of all the smoke from the plane crash, something killed one of the zombies. Out of the smoke stepped Alicia.
Yeah.
Looking all badass and, you know, leather jacket covered in blood and stuff like that. And she had one of the propellers from the plane. And she was using it as like a sword.
Yeah, so they could... Right, okay. Well, has she just come out of that plane? And then we found out they were all in the plane.
Yeah, because then we started getting intercut scenes of like showing all of the characters, and they'd all been in this plane crash. I mean, that first kind of 10 minutes or so was literally them killing zombies. It was like... Oh, and here's this character. Oh, no, look, there's Morgan. And look, there's, what's her name? I can't remember what she's called now. Yeah, John, Dory, and June. And then we got fact that all of them were okay apart from Luciana, who had been impaled by something. So that wasn't good. But yeah, it was just intercutting between them all coming out and sort of killing the zombies and trying to corral these kids, setting up traps. And they kept talking. They were on about how things had gone wrong. They hadn't got to the landing point. There was still
The touchdown
time.
spot.
Yeah, the
And
touchdown
will
spot.
they make it in time? Yeah.
So we had no indication of what was going on. I was sat there going, what's happening here? Like, where did they get this plane from? Where are they going? Who are they supposed to be meeting? So it felt like we'd missed something, but that obviously that became more apparent as the episode went on. But yeah, it was lots of intercutting scenes between them all talking about trying to get hold of Strand, because obviously Strand wasn't with them, and he was out of range, and they were having to, those that were trapped in the plane were trying to get out, and then they got the little boys in, and they were like, you have to stay with her. And she was trying to convince them to go because more and more zombies were coming. She was like, leave me here. And they're like, no, we're not going to leave you. And the little boy was talking to her, which was quite sweet. And then they said, we got to like try and move her. But they didn't know what to do because they were starting to get more surrounded because the zombies were coming from all angles, weren't they?
Yeah.
And then you had that weird bit where where Alicia set up like this weird I was like, what is she doing? She's like banging like almost like tent pegs into the ground. It's like, what is that all about? But then it was like tripwire. So she set up this barricade. So as the zombies were getting closer, they were falling over it. And then they were just being able to stab them in the head and stuff. But then she fell backwards because she got knocked. And when she looked at what she was laying on, there was a sign and it said, did it say danger radiation area?
That's it, yeah. Radiation. It's like, oh. So they decided they needed to move the girl, didn't they? Because they killed there was loads of them, weren't there?
Yeah.
It was like a pile of zombies.
Yep.
The amount of zombies they killed, it's like you just looked, panned away, and I went, what? So they said that they had to get the girl out of the plane, but they couldn't take the thing out because they didn't have any medicines or something, did they? So they had to cut enough of it to move her.
Yeah. So she still had this like. What was it? It was like a wooden, like a pole or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like a metal pole.
Or was it a metal pole? Yeah, and they were like,
they sawed it, didn't they? You used a saw to get some of it off.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously they got her out. Was that happened when they were trying to get out? They were moving along. They were trying to find somewhere to take her, and then this truck just turned up. This van.
And there was this sort of scruffy-looking girl, and they were like, "Who are you?" And they were like, "That's our sister."
Yeah.
So it's the sister of these two boys. And she was like, come on, get in. So they all piled into the truck, and then that was their means of escape. So they got out of there. And it was like, oh, okay, so we've now been introduced to 3 new characters, so these 3 kids. So that's interesting.
Yeah. And they did pan away for a bit, and we saw these big lorries, and I went, trucks? And then I realised it was Strand and the woman and the black guy.
Yeah, the guy that's in the wheelchair. Guy. Yeah.
And I went, oh, yeah, it's those guys. That's where they are. But where are they going? Sort of don't know about that at the moment.
That was something to do with, they said that they were on their way somewhere, but then Al managed to get a message to Strand, and it said something about they had issues with the plane, and but there was another plane, or they could get their hands on another plane, and you need to find this tape. So there's a tape of mine, and she said who it was marked something or other. I can't remember what it was now. D, I think, or something. And she said, you need to find this tape, and then that will lead you. You'll be able to find the guy that has got another plane, so you will get to fly, because for some reason he hadn't gone with them in the plane, and he seemed a bit pissed off about that.
Pissed off, yeah.
So it was like, he's got this little side mission of like, I've got to go and find one of her videotapes, and it will help lead us to another plane.
Right, yeah. So then they were driving along with they're all in the thing, and they were instructing her where they needed to go. So they ended up at another truck stop, which is obviously the truck stop they thought they had to be at. So they got them in there. They got in there, didn't they?
Wait, before that, something very important happened before that, and something that was really freaky was that they were chatting to these kids, and the kids were like asking them loads of questions and answering their questions. And then like the girl was saying about, you don't know where you are. It's not just what did they call them? Growlers. It's not just the growlers you have to worry about. This isn't a very good place. And they were like,
she kept saying that, didn't she?
Yeah, why do you keep saying that? And they mentioned about the radiation stuff, and that there's things everywhere. There's rivers are flooded. There's trees down. There's all sorts of devastation in this region of the country that they found themselves in. But that there's something else, something clearly that's sinister and creepy to these kids. And she said, look, I'll just show you. So she drove them somewhere, and
Ah,
oh my god!
that was the barricade made of walkers, wasn't it?
And all of the zombie heads
And
hanging from
heads
the
in the
trees.
trees. Yeah,
That
that's right. That was before they got to that place because they were
yeah.
saying they don't look. They didn't think they should go where they're going, and
Mm,
then they came across the barricade. Yeah, and that was awful.
that was
Clever.
yeah, clever and also very freaky, very horror movie. So it's like
Yeah.
somebody has set this up. This has been done by people, and they said there are lots of these things all around the area. Like it's almost like they're trying to keep people in, or they're trying to prevent people from going to the other whatever's the other side of that barricade of
Mm.
walkers. It was like a
And
warning thing of keep out.
yeah, and they decided no, we've got to go through. We've had the message from this somebody called Logan.
Yeah.
He's surrounded. We've got to get to him. So they chopped the barricade down, didn't they?
Mhm.
And headed towards this place. When they got there, no sign of life. Got in, no one to be seen.
And they looked around, and Alicia kept saying, I don't like this. I've got a bad feeling about this.
Mm.
This doesn't feel right. And Morgan, being the ever optimistic, let's help everybody. Everybody has got got the ability to change and be good kind of attitude that he has. He kept saying, no, no, it's fine. We just need to keep looking, and we wouldn't have been led here for no reason. And he was keeping this constant
Mm.
optimism. So they carried on
Kids didn't want to,
scouring the place. The kids didn't
the
want to
kids
stay,
didn't want to
no.
stick around, no. And then
They were then like, we need to operate on Luciana because, we need to get this done now. So they managed to get loads of supplies. John was sort of saying to June, oh, have you done this before? And she was like, well, yeah, in a medical centre, not on a table in the middle of a convenience store, but as long as we can find enough things, that I can use to do this as a, as a operation, then it shouldn't be too bad.
yeah, is that the bit where the girl with the camera went outside? And she came across some more walkers, and one of them was when she first encountered that walker with like a uniform on. And she
That
went to
was
get the medical things the
no,
first time she saw it.
that was before they left the crash site. Before they left,
No,
yeah, it was because she returned there later on. So
is that she went as far as that later on?
yeah, so
Oh, I thought that was where they were.
no, before they left the crash site, there was this walker that had body armor and a helmet
Yeah,
on, and it
yeah,
looked very space agey. It looked very weird looking.
yeah.
And she kept saying about there being a story. There's a story there, Morgan. And Morgan said, no, we're
Mm,
not going back there. Because she went off on her own. She was reviewing her footage. And she said, we need to go back. And he was like, not yet. We need to solve all this first. We need to figure out what's happened with Logan. We need to stitch up Luciana. It's getting towards night time. So we'll go tomorrow.
mm,
But at the moment, it's not the priority. And she's like, but I can't shake this feeling that there's something important about this, Morgan. And
yeah.
he wasn't willing to discuss it any further. So that was that scene, and that was just the end of that, and it didn't come back up until later.
Later on.
In the
Yeah. Okay.
meantime, they do the operation and then get on the radio, or did they get on the radio and then do the operation?
The operation and then get on the radio.
So they managed to pull the pole out of her, and quickly they were all gathering round, and they were like patched her up and stuff. And luckily, they were lucky. They said, oh, it just missed a couple of major like arteries and things like that. She was very, very lucky.
Yeah.
So they
But
managed
then
to save her. The kids didn't want to
they
stick
say
around.
no, and then we saw this man.
Yeah, and he was
This
at
man,
the
he went into a
jeans
shelter.
factory.
We saw him in a factory or somewhere.
Hmm.
The tapes, all the tapes,
Yeah.
her tapes, because they had Alicia's name on, I think, as well. Those names that were familiar. They were all in this place.
And there was because earlier
But
on they'd mentioned to the kids about having movie night and stuff, and so you saw a pile of like VHS movies, like just like, oh, that's how they have their film night. And there were all these beds everywhere and things like this. And this guy was just wandering around looking at all this
yeah,
stuff. So it's like, who is this bloke?
and then that's when he got on the tried to use the radio, wasn't it?
And he managed to get hold of Logan.
Who is this man?
And Logan said, I'm really sorry I'm not there, but my crew are, what do you say, my crew are looking at your crew right now.
Yeah, because the trucks had pulled up to the place where they thought they had to go,
Well, because they'd
and
gone
they weren't
back.
going to let them in.
Well, yeah, because they'd gone back to the jeans factory in order for Strand to get this videotape that
Yeah,
Alla told him about. So that's why they
yeah.
had turned up there. And when they got there was a whole bunch of guys with guns just stood there at the fence, and they're like, oh my god. And this guy was like, I'm really sorry about this, but I had to get you far enough away. And it was really interesting because on one hand you go, he's an antagonist, he's a villain, but not in the way we've seen before, because he said, I didn't want any bloodshed, I don't want to harm you people, I just wanted back what's mine. And they're like, what are you talking about? And then when he talked about the operation with the leaving the boxes and the truckers and stuff, he said, that was my partner. Polar Bear was my partner. I'm the L in CNL or whatever it was called.
Yeah, that's it.
And he said, it's my company too. So he said, effectively, you were squatting in my property. I own the deeds to this factory, and I just wanted back what was mine.
Mm.
So you and your people can be on your way. I mean you no harm. I've left you some supplies because I still keep with the philosophy. And that's when, again, it showed Strand and stuff. And outside, they'd left a skip full of take what you need, leave what you don't.
Yeah.
And he said, but this is my place now. And you're just going to have to deal with that. And then Alicia lost her mind, didn't she? And she was like, I'm going to kill you, you son of a bitch, and all this lot.
Yeah, it's like, yeah. So he lured them there, but he was already going, he'd already took over the other place. It's like, oh.
And he was our other person that I said, another notable actor joining the cast, because that guy is Matt Frewer. Because I saw him and I was like, I know that guy, and it's Matt Frewer. Matt Frewer, most famously known by a lot of people from the 80s as Max Headroom.
Oh, my days.
And he was also in, do you remember that time they did that TV movie of Alice in Wonderland? He was the one of the knights in Alice in Wonderland. He was also in Altered Carbon, you know, the thing we watched with the weird sort of sci-fi thing we watched. He was in that. He was in another sci-fi program I watched called Falling Skies, which I don't think you ever watched.
I saw some of that, yeah.
He was an army general in that. So he's been in a lot of sci-fi stuff. So this is a guy that, you know, a lot of people, well, a lot of people maybe our age group and stuff would know him as Max Headroom, but he has gone on to be in a lot of sci-fi programs and things. He was in, I think he was in Fringe. He was in Supernatural as well. He was one of the four horsemen of the apocalypse. He was Pestilence.
Supernatural. Yeah.
So yeah, he's been in tons of these kind of programs. And now he's coming to Fear the Walking Dead. So I was like, oh, that's cool. I really like Matt Frewer. So that's interesting that he's like, seems to be, well, I say he seems to be the new big bad. I have theories that maybe he's not. He's going to maybe be an antagonist, but not necessarily.
No, I don't think so now after what happened at the
guy.
end.
So yeah, that was interesting. So that was that. So that's like, okay, so now they've lost their safe haven. They're on the road again. They're at this truck stop. The kids have buggered off. They're all together at least, but they're most of them are together, but they still got to now try and meet up with Strand and the trucker woman and the guy in the wheelchair.
Yeah.
So there's this dynamic. So it's like, okay, so this is our dynamic going forward
for the series. Yeah.
We then had two very interesting things happen. So which one do you want to talk about first, the owl thing or the Strand thing? I think we should talk about the Strand thing. Oh, you want to talk about
thing? No, Strand thing. Strand thing.
So Strand finds this video. He got the videotape that Alla told him about, and he said about going. He spoke to the other two. They had this whole conversation about brewing beer and about being really annoyed because she was like, my still was in there, and she was looking at the poster of Jimbo from the last season, the guy that gave her all the recipes to brew the beer.
Oh, yeah.
And she was like, oh, you'll be so glad that you're not here, Jimbo. And she said, I'm so pissed right now. You know, everything that I worked for. And the guy in the wheelchair was like, it's okay, you can, you know, this. They had this weird conversation about brewing beer.
Yeah.
And Strand was like, right, you know, we need a plane. We're going to get a plane today. So I'm going to go and have a look at this videotape and see what it can tell us. So he went and sat in the back of the lorry. And then he watched the video, and oh my God.
There he is.
We got the person we never got to see at all last season. Somehow Al came across Daniel Salazar.
And
And
I just said, is he alive or was that before? So I thought, what? Does that reveal he's alive or not?
And Strand looked like he had seen a ghost.
Yep.
Because them two didn't really part on the best of terms. There is no love lost between Salazar and Strand, especially with all the stuff that happened at the dam and things like that.
Yep.
So it's like, oh my God, so he survived the dam when all that devastation happened at the end of the season before last season, so 2 seasons back. And he's been out here in the world, and he seems to have built up a collection of things, because he was like in a garage or something, wasn't he? And it seemed like he
Was
had.
that when they panned round? Oh no. That's when the other bits were to do with the girl, what she found. Yeah.
But he had a lot of stuff. He looked like he was in a big, almost like an airplane hangar.
Yeah, that's what it looked
quite
like.
a large space, and it looked like there were cars in the background and things like this, and a lot of mechanical stuff. And obviously, he also has a plane at his disposal. So yeah, is he still alive, or was this? This is him being in the show, but it's through the medium of the videotapes. But
yeah, that's why I put live or before. So but he's there. That's all that matters. You kept saying, when is he going to be shown?
Because I love him.
What happened to him?
I love his
After
character.
the dam, we never found out what happened to him.
So I was very happy to see that. But it was a bit like,
I thought
oh
of
my
you
god.
at the time.
So that was the one. That was one big shocker. Now the other one was Al, stupid journalist of she couldn't keep still, could she? So she went out back to the crash site on her own. And
yeah, so she went to investigate that thing she'd killed in a uniform.
Yeah.
Well, no, she hadn't killed him. He was already killed, wasn't he? No, he wasn't a zombie, was he?
He was impaled, but he was still zombie. He was still like, rah. So she took off the helmet and stabbed him in the head.
That's right.
And then she was investigating and it was really weird because it was all ridged. It had all this ridge plating on the front of it. It was very
futuristic.
Yeah, futuristic body armor. And so then she was checking the body to see if she could find something, and she found this weird zip-up pouch thing in the trouser pocket.
So there was paperwork. There was something. Was it CRM? Was written on it.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
And then there was a logo which looked a bit like the Olympic logo, like 3 circles.
It was 3 circles instead of 5, but yeah.
Yeah, but it's that sort of thing. I drew it. I thought, who was this guy? Where was he from?
And there was a thing she was looking through the paperwork, and some of what we could make out said something about the restricted area stuff, something to do with the radiation, and about orders. But before she had the chance to make it, she radioed Morgan and said, I came back here, and he's like, I thought we were going in the morning. She said, I couldn't help myself, there's a story here. And she said, Morgan, there's something going on here, that I've found something really interesting. And then somebody zapped her.
I know. Somebody stun gunned her.
And it was somebody, by the looks of it, they were in a similar uniform to the one that this zombie was wearing.
Yeah.
So she's clearly been captured.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh my god, so who is this? And that's what I was saying before about, I don't think Matt Frew is going to be the main antagonist. I think it's going to be...
There's somebody else, isn't there?
Yeah.
Some other people out there.
But the question now is, are these armoured people... Are they something to do with the horrible barricade of zombie heads and things? Is that connected to them? Is that all, is it all going to be tied together, that they're maybe their stronghold is in the centre of that area, so that's why they put all the zombie heads there and stuff like that?
Yeah.
But do you want to know something really interesting?
What?
This was our tie into the main show, into Walking Dead. Because I don't know if you remember, but... Do you remember when Rick went out of The Walking Dead? And he was put in a helicopter, yeah? That him and Jadis got in a helicopter?
Yes.
It had the same symbol on the side of that helicopter.
Oh, did it?
Yep. So that symbol that Al found on the paperwork is the same symbol that was on the helicopter that was taking Jadis and Rick somewhere.
And that makes sense to the timeline, because they haven't changed their timeline, have they?
No, they're still in the...
So that is their timeline is when Rick disappeared, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So,
So is this how it's all going to tie together leading into the Rick Grimes movies? And I've also since in a few bits online that have said, are they maybe finally going to tell the story of, the zombies, the zombie apocalypse? Is it something to do with these people? Is it is that why it's featured now on both The Walking Dead?
What caused it?
Yeah.
You mean? Yes.
These people in this armor, and the reason there's all these radiation warnings, and the fact that this group, whoever they are, is now going across 2 of the shows. Is it because they're going to turn out to be somehow behind what went wrong? Why the world turned to hell? Why there are zombies everywhere? So are they finally going to tell that story, and is it going to be done through the medium of both the programs, somehow?
Very interesting.
Very, very
But,
interesting.
yeah, a good first episode. Really thought, wow.
Yeah.
It's, now you'll start thinking, oh, there's going to be so much going on. It weren't just like a lame one, was it? Or at all. It was new people, all this stuff going on. Not 3 different things, like the kids, the guy now in their place,
Yeah.
and this thing she found.
Yeah.
And Daniel, so there's 4 things.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, they came back with a bang, didn't they?
They did, yeah. And it was great. I mean, it's weird as well. Going from that initial 10 minutes with the weird A-Team-esque opening scene and this first 10 minutes is literally them just killing zombies. And it's like, okay. I was sat there going, yeah, this is cool. But it's like, it's not like we haven't seen this before. But I was also confused because I was thinking, why were they in a plane? Where did they find a plane? What's happening? But then once the girl in the truck showed up, and we started getting into the nitty-gritty of, this is our new plot thread or the beginnings of the plot thread for this season, then I went, right, now you've got me hooked. Now you've got my interest again.
Because did they also say something about the parents, but we don't know what happened to their parents?
Yeah, we don't know.
How they ended up on the road and stuff. So they've got a story, haven't they, as well? So,
yeah, I think we'll be seeing them again, yeah.
Oh, definitely, yeah. But yeah. Ooh.
So, yeah, so very good.
Keep listening, guys. We got more exciting stuff next week.
So it's a very good, strong opening episode of this show. And also, we also have, I wonder how long it'll be, how much further into it, and if he's going to be connected to any of these groups or whether he's going to be on his own, is when we get introduced to Dwight again.
Yeah.
Because that's going to be interesting. Maybe he'll be with Daniel. That would be interesting. That would be very interesting if it turns out that he somehow shacked up with Daniel. He's
bumped into him at some point, yeah.
Yeah.
We shall see.
But I don't know. I'm not sure how many episodes this will be. What was it last time? Was it 16 or something?
Yeah, don't they have a break as well?
Yeah, because there's 8 episodes, as they say, on the docket at the moment. There's 8 episodes scheduled that take us through until... So sort of the end of July, I think, is the 8th episode. And then there'll probably be a break, and then it'll come back after the, like, what would it be? August, October time?
Yeah, not that late, because when does Fear start? The other one doesn't. When does the other one start? That starts the end of the year, so it's...
Yeah,
it breaks, but then it comes back, and then there's a week later, and then the other one starts again, doesn't it?
It'll probably be late August, beginning of September, and then that'll go through until sort of like the first week of October or something, and then the following week, The Walking Dead will come back.
Yeah, that's it. That's how it usually does it, yeah.
Like that, yeah. So, yeah, it's exciting stuff, so I was very pleased about that.
Me too.
So going from zombies and exciting stuff, we're going to go to another exciting program, and also a very weird program, and also a program that in some ways could have followed Lucifer in terms of some of the themes. This was the program that I have been anticipating the arrival of for probably a year now, since they first started showing the little teasers of it. And that was the TV adaptation of Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman's Good Omens, starring Michael Sheen and our boy David Tennant.
Yes.
So what are your initial thoughts on this program?
Weird. You can definitely tell it's from a book because the way they've done it. The beginning especially, we had that I'll tell you, we'll talk about it in a minute.
Yeah.
So there was a weird beginning bit, then, because there was obviously like a voiceover for things, then a little bit, and then obviously then it went into the credits, which were really hilarious, funny cartoons, with all the relevant things included in it.
Yeah.
But yeah, very, very easy to watch and have a laugh at. Hard to note down things because so much happened.
What I liked about it was that obviously I watched it the other night with Zoe, and we both had the same thought in that the very beginning was like the beginning. It was very Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where you have this quirky voiceover saying sort of comedy lines and things, talking about weird stuff and like what the day was, and it was, whatever time of the day on a Sunday afternoon and all of this kind of stuff.
What year?
Yeah, like the whole thing about the beginning of the world.
Incorrect. And then eventually one guy got it nearly right.
Yeah.
So 9 o'clock in the morning. No, It was 9:16. Correct.
Even though the voiceover was being done by an American actress,
Yes.
the content, the line she was speaking was very British humour. You could
Yes.
tell this has been written by, and especially, like I said, Douglas Adams, Terry Pratchett, that they are authors that, they come from the same perspective of it's all very slapsticky, satirical, tongue-in-cheek, comical, British, very British sort of humour. And that was evident from the get-go with all of this introduction to how the world came into being and what God did, and how, like you said, certain people nearly got it right, and how old the earth was and how old it actually was, and the whole thing with the dinosaurs were put there just to mess with people. That was like a joke when they uncovered dinosaur fossils, that was just there as a joke, that dinosaurs didn't really exist and all this lot, but it was just done to mess with the paleontologists and the scientists and all this kind of stuff. Oh, it was so funny. I was in
It
fit.
was. It was brilliant.
We got introduced to our two main characters of the show, which is, now I actually had to write a few things down for this because of some of the names and things, because I thought, I'm not going to remember them all in my head specifically, but you had Aziraphale, who is an angel, and then you had Crowley, who is a demon.
Well, I know Crowley.
Yeah, well, Crowley.
Supernatural.
Yeah, you've had, and Mr. Crowley, the Black Sabbath song.
Yes.
You've got Black Sabbath did the Mr. Crowley song. So yeah, you have Crowley the demon and Aziraphale the angel, and I just love the dynamic between these two characters, and between these two actors. You've got Michael Sheen and David Tennant. David Tennant is the demon, for those of you that haven't realised. So he's Crowley, and Michael Sheen is Aziraphale, the angel. Now, one observation I will make from the beginning, before we get into talking about the specifics of the episode, is that I'm sat there watching it, and I'm watching the way they're interacting with each other. And you've got one guy in this show who used to be Doctor Who, in David Tennant. I felt that in some ways he was playing it a little bit similar. So although obviously he was, he's a different character and stuff, but there were certain points where I was like, the little snarky comments and the little remark, I was like, oh, it's a bit similar to how he portrayed Doctor Who, and especially with the accent as well. He's doing that sort of estuary, English accent again, like he did in Doctor Who. But the way him and Michael Sheen were acting, and did Michael Sheen, and maybe it didn't at the time, but maybe me saying this might make you see it now, he reminded me of Tom Baker.
Yeah, a little bit. Colin Baker.
Colin Baker, sorry, yeah, not Tom Baker, Colin Baker. The way that he was, the way he looks to start with the hair and the little suit and the bow tie and everything, and just the way, he's quite posh and a bit scatterbrained and a little bit, he likes the finer things in life, but also is a little bit, he's not quite there with all of his marbles. And I just thought, it's so Colin Baker, and I was just like, I would love now this portrayal that Michael Sheen is doing right now. He would be a brilliant Doctor Who.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, because he's playing the character this way in this programme, even if he were to get cast as Doctor Who in the future, he probably wouldn't play it in the same way that he's playing this character.
No.
So he's playing a Doctor Who-esque character in a show that isn't Doctor Who, where he would make a perfect Doctor Who.
Yeah. Indeed.
Oh dear, but I had to get that out of the way first, because that was just an observation I got from watching the interplay between the characters and everything like that. So yeah, so we had obviously the beginning of time. So we had the Garden of Eden. Yeah,
Garden of Eden, and the snake appears out of the ground, whispers in her ear, she eats the apple, he eats the apple, and the next thing you know, they're coming out of a cave with their signature fig leaves,
and
she's pregnant. And she's pregnant, and he's got a flaming sword, and they're in the desert. So that's that. Let me see the angel and the devil. Angel. What should I call him? Crowley, right. So an angel and Crowley, one was thinking God's punishment was a bit over the top.
Yeah.
Making them, because of the apple. This is the angel saying, right. Crowley was saying to the angel, that was a bit too much. I think he went over the top over that. And then the angel had given Adam his flaming sword. So they're both in trouble, aren't they, basically? They both upset the apple cart. The apple cart. Yeah, because he wasn't supposed to give him the flaming sword. So he did that, and he did that. It's like, we both broke the rules.
And then they were both like, but what I could have done could have been seen as good. So then I'll be in trouble because I'm a demon and I did a good thing. But then you're an angel, and what you did could be seen as a bad thing. So
Yeah.
we're sort of crossing over into each other's territory here.
That's right. And then they had the opening credits, the funny cartoon opening credits.
And it kind of showed them together, like, through
working
history,
together with
it?
all the different things that have happened in history and stuff like that.
And they're making their way from that, like, from the beginning of time through to the present day.
Yeah. So then it started 11 years ago.
Yep, 11 years ago, and it was like whatever,
And we had
the day and the time and all of this stuff.
Yeah. We had a weird, it was a Monday, I think it was.
Yeah, it was a Monday, yeah.
So we had some weird demons at a graveyard with frogs on their heads.
Yeah, one had a weird, like a frog on his head, and the other one just looked like he had black eyes.
Oh, his eyes, black eyes.
Was
waiting
covered
for
in
Crowley.
foil.
Waiting for Crowley, as she kept saying. Crowley.
Yeah.
Then we hear Bohemian Rhapsody in the background, his car turns up. And they were saying, like, you're supposed to be up to bad deeds, that's what you're about. And he goes, I did a bad deed. I took the internet down.
No, it was the mobile phone network.
Oh, the mobile phone network. That's right. He said, I took the mobile phone network down.
Because they were comparing, weren't they? So you had the demon, the kind of the Irish demon that initially me and Zoe thought might have been Dylan Moran to start with. We were like, is that Dylan Moran? But obviously it's not Dylan Moran. It's another Irish actor. He was saying about what he did. It's like, well, we shall recount the day's events. So what have we done? And he said, I did this. Was he the one that did the thing with the priest? And he said, I made a priest look at a bunch of pretty girls and made him start questioning his vows of celibacy. Yeah. And he said, we will have him within 2 years. And then the black demon, the guy that had the frog on his head, who reminded me of somebody. I was like, did he used to be in EastEnders or something?
Maybe.
But he was then saying about what he did. I can't remember what his thing was, but he said, we will have him within a year or something. And then he said, and what of you, Crowley? What deeds have you achieved? And he said, wow, you're not going to believe this. And he was like, I only went and took down the whole mobile phone network for the Greater London area. And they looked and they were like, and how is that an evil deed in his name? And he's like, well, think about it. However many million people not being able to get on their mobile phones, not being able to use their data, they're all going to be wanting to murder each other and all this kind of stuff. And he said, it's going to be chaos. Oh, it's so funny.
And then they said to him, right, so the deed at hand is, and he goes, it's time, really? It's the time. They had a basket in their hand.
Yep.
I was thinking, all right, what's in the basket? And he's going, really? Yes, this is your job, or something like that.
And he looked very disappointed, didn't he?
Yeah. So they handed him the basket.
Yeah.
Put it in his car.
And then he got in the car and he put the radio on again and drove off. And
Bohemian Rhapsody again.
And then Radio 4 started talking to him.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the implication they're trying to make there, that BBC Radio 4 is the home of the devil. But but then that's when he got his instructions, and he was told that he had to deliver this basket because tonight was the night, and he had to go to this hospital convent where he would deliver. Yes. And it turned out, like you said, it was a baby in the basket, but not just any baby.
No, the son of the devil.
Yes, it was the Antichrist himself.
The Antichrist. So when did Gabriel turn up? It was before the baby people bit happened. Did he turn up?
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't before. It was. So he had that, and so he got given his instructions, and he drove off. Then it cut to Aziraphale was sat in a sushi bar, and he was ordering food.
That's it.
And then John Hamm turned up. It was obviously Angel Gabriel. John Hamm is stood there, and he's like,
"Why are you eating that stuff?"
Yeah, and he's like, "Oh, but I like it," and about the alcohol and stuff. And he said, "Would you like some?" And he was like, "I don't imbibe." What did he say, like waste matter or something like that? He's like, I don't put that in my celestial body. And he said, I'm quite fond of the clothes, though. And he was like, sort of saying, I like the suit. Yeah.
Yeah, so then he informed him that it's
happened.
It's starting, basically. It's starting. So it's like, oh, no, really?
And he also looked very disappointed and very despondent about the fact that, great, we're on the road to Armageddon.
Real work now.
Yeah.
And then we had somewhere in Oxfordshire, which I thought was hysterical.
Tadworth.
Two babies on the way. So we had this couple in the car, regular couple. She's in labour. The nun said if it's so many minutes or minutes apart to head towards the place. That's all we knew. Like nuns delivering the baby. And then as they were driving along, an entourage of cars and an ambulance passed them
For the wife of an American ambassador.
Heading also to the same place.
Yeah.
Right, so...
Then we get introduced to the nuns, which really confused me, because I was like, wait... Because to start with, I was
chattering nuns.
Yeah, again, I wrote this down. The Chattering Order of St. Beryl.
Yeah, so we had all these nuns, and they had their orders. So they had the Mother Superior, I presume, telling them what the plan was.
Yep, and she said about the couple will arrive, and this is the plan, is basically we will deliver the baby, and then we will swap the baby with our Lord. And then
they showed this diagram with the mother and a baby. Then they took the normal baby, and the one with horns was put on there.
Yeah.
And then the real baby will go home, and then it will start. And then we had this little black nun who was being not quite happy with what was going on, and so they all got their jobs. And she said, "What about me?" And she goes about getting the biscuit.
Yeah, the ones with the pink icing.
Sent her off to get, and then she sort of looked at her as if say, "She's a dim one."
Yeah.
So they had room 4 was set up for the politician. Room 3 was obviously
the other couple.
And as soon as they said about the swapping of the babies, my first thought is the babies are going to go to the wrong people.
Yes, we had exactly the same. It was like, this is all going to go wrong. And especially when they started doing the narration of the card trick. And it was like, here are 3 cards and they are 3 babies. And the trick is how to do this thing. And I thought, I know what's going to happen here. The wrong baby is going to go home with the wrong couple.
Well, basically what happened, the reason this happened is they put the senator woman in room 4. Then the couple turned up.
Yeah.
And the young nun with the biscuits
just happened to be in the hallway when Crowley showed up with the baby.
No, it wasn't. Didn't they show her to the room first? The nuns rushed her away, and they took her into room 3. Told the dad he couldn't come and watch. Yeah. She's in room 3. He goes outside and has a cigarette.
That's right.
And then Crowley turns up with the baby in the car.
And he's like, "Has it started yet?"
Yeah, so he thinks he's a doctor. And he goes, "But we're in room 3." So he's going, "Oh, okay, I know where I'm going."
Yeah.
So he goes in. Then that's when the black nun sees him. And he goes, "I've got to go to room 3. She just takes him because she didn't really take any notice of what the woman was telling the others because she won't get any instructions.
Yeah.
Wanders off. The other woman had her baby because she was basically just about to pop, wasn't she?
Yeah.
So there was the baby. So, this must be the right room. Brings in the other baby. Meanwhile, the other woman's having her baby.
Yeah.
Talking to her husband on the phone or something, wasn't it? During the whole thing.
Because he was with the president, wasn't he?
Yeah.
So she was chatting to him like on a conference call and getting really annoyed with him because of the things he was saying.
Yeah.
Okay, so then
the baby's got put in the wrong place. That was
so then he gave the baby to the young nun who had been getting the biscuits and told him immediately, take him to room 3 quickly. And so she was like, "Oh, I've been given an amazing job to do." So she went and did it. And then she brought the baby in, and then the dad came in and said, "Is it done? Is it over yet?" And she said, "Oh, yes, yes." And then he was like, "Twins?" And she said, "Oh, no, this isn't your baby. This is the wrong baby. I will be removing this baby now." And she said, "This one's yours." And he was like, "Oh, okay, very, very good." And
then the nun came in with the wink. Her wink meant that. The other wink meant...
what she thought, what it actually meant and what she thought it meant. So it was like the different descriptions of like what sister, whatever her name is, thought the wink meant was. What it actually meant was this thing.
Yeah, that was so funny.
But then she removed the baby and they all thought, "Oh, we've done a good job." And then you had that, the other bit where it's like, you would like to believe that this story would, we would tell you that the other baby, the surplus baby, was taken away and adopted by another family and stuff like that. And if that's what you'd like to believe happened, who am I to tell you that it's not?
It goes on to have a lovely life. So, let's go with that one.
Yeah.
And then it was the naming of the baby.
Yes.
Damien.
So the American, so the American one, they were trying to convince the names and... They said about an old English name, didn't they? And it said Warlock.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, yeah, okay, Warlock. We'll call it Warlock. Yeah, because she didn't like Damien because... Was the surname Dowling?
Damien Dowling, yeah.
So she said, "I don't like it." No. I don't like the sound of that, the alliteration and stuff. It's not, I don't like it. So they said about, an old English name, Warlock. It's powerful and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, Warlock. And then you saw the other ones coming up with the name, and they were like...
They also didn't like Damien.
No, and he was saying, I was thinking something
Kane.
a bit
What
more...
about Kane? Kane's a good name.
Yeah, and he's like, I was thinking something a bit more traditional. And then she said, "What about Adam?" And he was like, Adam, I like that. And the wife liked it too. And I just thought, Adam, the first man, but now also Adam is the name of the Antichrist. I was like, oh, God. Oh, dear.
So we had the baby thing. So then we panned away to the great park in London, St James's Park.
Where all great espionage schemes go down, where all spies go to meet. And
even the ducks.
Yeah, and the ducks know, and they know the right sort of bread to go for, and who's going to be feeding them certain things and stuff like that. And it's like this is where Crowley and Aziraphale have been meeting a lot over the years, and that's when it obviously established that they've remained friends. They've been keeping, working with each other and hanging out with each other and things like that, even though they're on obviously the opposite sides.
Yeah. So he met up with him and explained it's done, the deed started, now what we're going to do. And they decided, well, we need to work together again. We still need to work together.
Because they didn't want the Armageddon to happen.
No, exactly. So they decided they were still going to do it together.
Mm-hmm.
And was that when they went off and got drunk?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I think they decided that they were going to do what they were going to do. And they said, I think we need to drink in order to discuss this further. So they went back to his bookshop place, and he said, I have some lovely bottles of Chateau Neuf de Pape that I've had since 1921. And he was like, I think there's a few bottles left. So they went back and they got absolutely smashed off their faces, didn't they? Yeah. And it was just so funny because they were like having this conversation. It was like losing track of their conversation. And what were we talking about again? And I can't concentrate when I'm like this. Neither am I. I think we need to sober up.
I thought if I could sober up like they did, they literally magicked the drink back in the bottle.
Yep.
It just absorbed back out of them into the bottles. I went,
know.
That's a neat way to sober up.
That was so cool. Very, very cool. And that's when they hatched their plan and they said, look, you're an angel, I'm a demon. We don't want either side to get the upper hand. We can't tip the scales in favour of one or the other because, basically we don't want Armageddon to happen. We like it here. We like listening to classical music. We like drinking. We like food. We like Earth in general. And if Armageddon happens, all this will be gone. And like David Tennant was saying to him, you'll have no more musty books and no more this and no more that. And so they agreed, well, what we'll do is we will be godfathers for the Antichrist. And we will influence him in equal measure, which will effectively just make him normal.
Yep.
He won't be one or the other.
Adam went home to his house and the warlock went to London.
Yep.
And there was none left over. Boom, boom. Yeah, so they are now new proud godfathers. And they decided their best way of interacting with the boy is did you say this already? I don't know if you just did. David Tennant was good. Oh, David Tennant. Crowley was going to be a nanny, and the other guy was going to be the gardener.
Oh my God! So
they could work within the child, so that they could watch over his every movement right up to the moment, so that they could hopefully prevent it happening. Basically.
So you had this Crowley was like some really sinister, creepy Mary Poppins, because you had that weird bit, when Nanny, will you sing me a bedtime song? And he's like, yes, of course. And then he sang this creepy song about rains of blood and ripping people's flesh and all of this kind of stuff to soothe the boy to sleep. And you had the bit beforehand when he was in the garden and, almost Hagrid-like Michael Sheen sort of being like, here, master, this here is brother Snail, and this here is brother this thing, and all this kind of stuff. We must love nature, and we look after everything, master, and all this kind of stuff.
So then they also showed that every now and again they had to report to their bosses. So they were on an escalator.
Oh, that was cool.
And Crowley would go down the escalator to hell, and the other guy would go up to see Angel Gabriel and report how things were going.
And wasn't it cool the way that you saw in the mirror, the reflection, that you could see Crowley going down the escalator?
Yeah,
it was really clever. The visual effects were really clever. Yes, and hell is like a weird nightclub, sort of almost like a squat, like an abandoned building with all dirty people everywhere and lots of rooms that are locked up and then we got to meet Beelzebub, who was like all scabby and surrounded by flies.
Oh, it's that woman.
Yeah.
Anna Maxwell thingy. Yeah. I love her.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, I know her. I love her. Oh, that's so cool. She's Beelzebub.
Yeah, exactly the same thought. And she was all scabby, and she's like, so what's going on then, and all this stuff. And he was saying, well, this has happened, and they weren't that impressed that the boy, basically, both parties got told he's too normal.
Yeah.
And they're happy about that because that's what they're hoping for. They're like, this is great, we want the boy to be normal, but heaven and hell, neither are happy. What was weird as well is that when as Aziraphale went to heaven and obviously had his meeting with Beelzebub, and did you notice Dune McKitchen from Plebs was one of the angels that he was talking to? You know the woman that runs the company that they work for in Plebs?
Yes.
She was one of the angels. She spoke to him briefly before they all left. And that
I
was,
don't know the actress, do I? I just the person out of Plebs.
That was her,
the one
yeah.
Yeah, I know you mean, yeah.
And so they all had a conversation with him, and they said a similar thing. And I was a bit like, they want Armageddon to happen. Like, it was weird that heaven also wanted things to progress the way they're meant to progress. So I was like, that's a rather interesting wrinkle to the story. I suppose because it's that thing, isn't it? It's like finally time for that final battle between heaven and hell. And of course heaven are going to win because we're the best. We're good. Of course we're going to win. So we want Armageddon to play out so then we can triumph. We win. All of this experiment of Earth and all of this kind of stuff will be over and done with. And then we can all move on with our lives, kind of thing.
Yep.
But obviously, our two heroes don't want this to happen because they enjoy being on Earth. So they had their check-ins, and both parties pretty much said the same thing about the boy's too normal, and he needs to do better work and stuff. And
so then we went 6 years later.
Yeah.
On a Monday.
On a Monday, yeah.
And it was his 11th birthday.
Yes, and there was something about the prophecy about the Hellhound, because you got that again, that weird bit in hell where the scruffy demon and the black demon, who this time had like a salamander or a lizard or something on his head, were looking in a room, and there was some creature in there with big legs and claws, and they were saying, he looks like he's ready, he's getting very anxious now, and they opened the door and they grabbed some random person and said, get in there, and obviously whatever it was killed that person. And it was like, what is that thing? And then we found out what the thing was, because Crowley said on his birthday the beginning will be a hellhound will show up, and it will know the master, it will find the master.
And as soon as he names the hound, that's the start.
That's the beginning of the apocalypse, yeah.
So we had two comparisons, didn't we? So we had Warlock, which is the politician woman's son.
Yep.
Being quite teenage, kiddie, wasn't he? Like with his phone and stuff like that. She took him to the zoo or something, didn't she? Or some dinosaur place. And
yeah, and he was writing rude words on the placards and things like that.
And then, so I'm confused now. They're watching over
Warlock,
which is that one. And then that's the one they did the party for, wasn't it?
So...
And they said, right, we're going to do a birthday party and we'll have to watch every moment. And the blimmin' angel decided to be a magician.
Oh, I know. Oh, that was so awkward. And he wasn't very good. And the kids got annoyed and they all ended up having a food fight, didn't they?
Yeah.
And then they had the party. The party rumbled on. Crowley kept looking at his watch, thinking it'll soon be time, because I think it was like at 3 p.m. or something it was supposed to show up. And he kept looking and looking, and nothing happened. And so then they retreated from the party, and they went and got in his car. And they're like, it's not showing up. And he, maybe it's a bit late and stuff like that. And then Hell came through and said, has the Hellhound arrived? Has it begun? And he's like, then he started lying. And he was like, oh, yeah, I can see it now. I can see it, yeah. Oh, but beastly looking thing it is. Oh, yeah, it's big old bugger he is, isn't he? And all this kind of stuff. And they're like, okay, well, keep us informed of when it happens. And then it dawned on them, and they were like, it's the wrong boy.
They realised it was the wrong boy,
Yeah, all this time, for 11 years, they've been with the wrong person.
So basically they're thinking, what do we do now? Do we have to find this other kid and kill this other kid?
Mm-hmm.
Because he's obviously the real one. Where is he?
Yep.
So then it panned to this nice little normal
sleepy
couple.
town in Oxfordshire, yeah.
Yeah, sleepy town in Oxford, making a birthday party. And the little boy was in the woods with his friends, and they were quite weird.
They all had strange names. They were like, what was it, like Pepper and something else? Or none of them had like normal names anyway.
No. And she was quite weird, wasn't she? What was it? She was talking like she should be evil, basically.
What, the little girl?
And then, yeah, the little girl, she said something, I can't remember what it was now. But anyway, they were playing, and then the boy, Adam, was sat in his tree and they saying about his birthday, and he said, "What I'd really like is a dog."
And
So
yeah, and we get
the
cut.
dog is in the background, growling, ready, waiting,
Scary looking
and they
thing,
was
big
going,
sharp teeth.
"Yeah, you want some big dog with big teeth?" And the dog's going, like, getting all excited. And he said, "No, I quite like a small dog." So anyway, and it's still seething in the corner.
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, if you had one, what would you call it?" And he goes, "Dog."
Because it's simple then, because then it's easy to remember and it's easier for the animal itself and all this. I think it's just, it says what it is. And as soon as he said that, it transformed into a cute little dog, didn't it?
I put, at the time, "Who let the dog out?" Who? And then when the dog ran up to him, I went, "Hey, it's Dog."
Yep, and it was slow motion. Slow motion, dog run. I just thought, I reckon this kid's been watching The Walking Dead. He's just taken a leaf out of Daryl Dixon's book. It's called his Dog. And then, the dog runs up, jumps on his lap, and he's like, hey, and he's really happy and stuff. And then it was like, and that was the beginning. And that was the beginning of and then obviously Crowley and Aziraphale realised, because he was sniffing the air, wasn't he? And he was like, something's different. Something's changed. And then he was like, it's begun.
The dog, he's named the dog or something, he said, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
As it ended, it's like, oh. So now, obviously, they still got to avoid it somehow.
Yep, they've now got to go and try to
find him,
track down the real Antichrist, who at present,
so
based on the little snapshot we saw of him, seems like a very well-balanced young boy.
Yeah, because he lives in Oxfordshire, that's why.
Yeah, and he was just sat in his treehouse and playing games with his friends, and his parents both still quite, sort of normal, sort of middle-class parents living in this little sleepy village, and... So, it was just fantastic.
Just laugh a minute all the way through it.
Everything I was hoping for it was.
Yeah.
It did not disappoint in any way, shape, or form.
No.
And I'm really, really...
Yeah, well, I knew nothing about it. All you said is about this demon angel and a good angel, and I seen a few snippets, and I did not know. Mm-hmm. Didn't do any reading up of it, just watched it.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. Mm-hmm. Classic.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to watching the next, because there's only 6 episodes altogether, so...
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's only a short one,
but yeah, I'm looking forward.
I'm not going to binge watch them.
Good.
I can get hold of all of them, but I'm not going to.
Yeah, same here. But I was very good. I was so tempted the night that we watched the first one, so tempted to go, let's watch the next one now. But it's like, nope.
Me too, but no, not going to.
So there we go. So that's Good Omens that we've probably, I don't know, I haven't been gauging the time, but that we may have ended up talking about that the most out of all the shows so far. But
we normally do with the funny ones though.
Yeah, it was great. It was just so entertaining. So if anybody hasn't seen it, recommend it. Go and watch it. Yeah. Go and watch it. And if you're a fan of David Tennant from either Doctor Who or Jessica Jones or Casanova or anything else you might have seen him in, go and watch him in this because he's fantastic.
And tell us what you think about that theory of Colin Baker and
yeah.
Michael Sheen.
Can you see what I'm saying? Can you see the Doctor Who comparisons with Michael Sheen and stuff? Yeah. Do you think he would make a good Doctor Who? Do you think he came across very Colin Baker? Or is it just me? Right, okay, so let's take it from celestial beings and let's go into the comic book realm, and we will discuss this week's episode of Agents of SHIELD, which was called Code Yellow, and it started in a really weird way. So we finally got to catch up with somebody that we haven't seen so far this season, and that was Deke. That was the son of Fitz and Simmons.
The grandson.
The grandson, sorry, from the future, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, he's turned into like a Silicon Valley nerd with all the business techno babble and things like that, and he's running like a tech company. But before we found that out, we got this weird bit where it was him and he had 2 guns and he was in a dark place and he was going through and he had someone with him and that person got killed and he's shooting loads of people, and I was sat there going, this isn't real. This is not. Yeah, this is like a game.
It's like it's on a ship, wasn't it?
Yeah. And straight off the bat, like me and Zoe again watching this, we both twigged that it wasn't reality. It was like this. There's something
game,
here that's like it's like a VR game or something. And the thing that really tipped it was after he did the really cool move where he dropped to the floor, dropped the gun, slid across the floor, blasted the guy, stood up, door opened, in walks a very sexy Daisy with all their cleavage showing and everything. She's like, "What took you so long?" and all of this, and he's like, "Sorry, babe, I had business to take care of and all this kind of stuff. And then he grabbed her and he's just about to like snog her and stuff, and then it got interrupted and it turned out, yeah, he's in like a VR thing. But not just any VR. No, he's only gone and ripped off the framework, hasn't he?
Yep.
And then that's when we discover he's got this company, he's like a tech guy.
He's using all his knowledge of SHIELD.
Yep, everything that SHIELD had, because there was that point where he was on about this, like, a prosthetic arm with an energy shield, and they're like, how'd you come up with these things? It's like, that's what Coulson had. Coulson had that energy shield that came out of his arm and stuff like that. And it's like, you're just ripping off everything that SHIELD have and making it into tech that you can sell. And I was just like, what has happened to him? How has he become like this? And he had this Instagram influencer girlfriend who was like a really ditzy sort of like stereotypical influencer character. She was having to vlog everything and, you know, get everything on Instagram, and everything was hashtags and all this kind of stuff, and real sort of, you know, valley girl bimbo type girlfriend. And she just kept, all she kept wanting was boba. She just wanted boba. When are we going for boba? And I had no idea what that was. I was like, what's boba?
No, I haven't got a clue.
What's boba? And then
what's boba?
Yeah, Zoe tipped me out and she went bubble tea. And I was like, oh, okay, that's what it's called.
Is that what it worked out to be?
Yeah, that's what it was, bubble tea. So, yeah, you have all this stuff to do with him, and it's like, okay, so he's just ripping off SHIELD. Now, obviously it was important to catch up with him for that reason. The other reason it was important to catch up with him was because we got to catch up with Sarge and his team again, didn't we? And
yes, we found out, because obviously at the end of last episode, you saw him shooting a gun into the air, and you said there was sort of like a grid or something.
Yeah. He said there's a lot of them, and we didn't know a lot of what. What did he mean by a lot of them?
Yeah. But it seemed to be, obviously, just after thinking about they killed a guy who seemed some sort of like an alien, didn't he? When they stabbed him, they chased him.
Yeah.
They killed him, and then all these bits came off him. So I was thinking, oh, is he actually from another planet?
That's what I
living
thought.
On this planet. And I thought, that's what they're really about. That's why they're there.
They're like bounty hunters.
They're bounty hunt. They're trying to kill things that shouldn't be in those areas, which makes me wonder about, you know, when you said about that bit where we saw the video where there was all the swirling.
Yeah.
They had just destroyed that place and walked away from it.
Yeah.
It wasn't their world. They just been somewhere else and just, it's time to leave now. Move on to the next place. That's what that's all about, I think.
So it makes you wonder now whether this is what they're like a cleanup crew. So they're obviously employed by something or somebody. So they're clearly working for somebody, because they go into these places, and like we discovered in this episode, possibly it's what they were on about with the grid, and that there are more of them, is that they seem to be hunting down people or things that don't belong. As you said, this guy who was waiting at a bus stop or whatever did seem like he was an alien. Especially after how he reacted after they stabbed him. And didn't they say something to him as well about like, you shouldn't be here, or you don't belong here, or something.
Yeah.
So that's where that ties in with Deke anyway, because you had all the stuff with him and his tech company and what he's doing. Then you had them on this mission, and they said they still have people on their list to take care of. And the next person on their list clearly was him, because
yeah, that was interesting, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So that Coulson turned up at Deke's place. Deke thinking it's Coulson.
Yeah, and he was playing along.
Coulson
wasn't he?
He had his dagger ready, and then because he was talking to him familiar, he and then he was having a conversation with him, obviously about saving his life and all this stuff. I thought he's just going to get the information from him now, because he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
And I thought, but then Deke caught him out, didn't he?
Yeah, because he was...
What did he say to him?
Well, he was watching his reactions and how he was answering him when he was asking him about certain people. So he said...
he threw somebody in that didn't exist.
Yeah, made up name. And he said, oh, you know how he is. He's the same as usual. And then that was the tip off of like, well, that's not a real person. So then that was when Deke was like, I just remembered, I've got to go and get a thing. If you wait here. And then obviously he realised...
he realised.
Yeah, Deke's poker face was obviously not very good, because Sarge realised, oh, you've rumbled me now, so end of this little charade.
And he said he had to kill it. He said, you're not supposed to be here.
Yeah.
He's from the future, isn't he? He's from the future, so he isn't supposed to be in that time, is he?
Not only from the future, he's from a future that doesn't exist anymore now.
Yeah, but he just said you're not supposed to be here, so it's like that's why he's targeted him. And it's like, oh my God.
So do you want to hear my theory at this point?
Yes.
My theory is that Sarge's group of bounty hunters, whatever they are somehow going to end up being connected to the people that are hunting Fitz and the rest of the gang up in space.
Ah, yeah, because it's a similar thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Ah.
So there's going to be some connection, because they've got to tie the two separate storylines together.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, after what happened in this episode and after some of the comments that were made, I thought, is that the connective tissue? Because Fitz and Enoch are being hunted because of the whole changes to time and things like that.
Well, they're the cause of it, aren't they?
Yeah.
So they're trying to put a stop to them because they caused it, and these guys are going to clear up the mess they've made because of doing it. Maybe. That makes sense, wouldn't it?
Yeah. So I'm wondering.
Still doesn't explain Coulson being Coulson, though.
No, I mean, we've still got a lot of lots of unanswered questions, but it was a little bit sort of, I started thinking, is this how they're going to tie the two separate story threads together?
Yeah.
So the other thing that happened was something that I don't know if you were like me, you probably were, that you saw something coming from a mile off. In the new agent who's involved with Yo-Yo.
Yeah.
He goes to see
Keller,
yeah, that's it. He goes to see Mac, and he's basically going to tell Mac the truth about him and Yo-Yo. And Mac clearly worked out where he was going with it, and basically told him in no uncertain terms, if you tell me anything that could potentially compromise the team, that would mean that I would have to break the teams up, and that would cause a lot of headaches because these teams work well together. So maybe it's a good idea not to say anything. And I thought, this is not just that, though. This is not just him being the director. This is also him saying, I don't want to know this information because, you know, it's to do with you and Yo-Yo, and because of his connection with Yo-Yo, it's like, I don't want to hear this.
But like, he also was relating it to him because it was awkward, the fact they were a couple. That did cause problems, didn't it?
Yeah.
So the fact is, if you're connected like that, I can't have you working with her, but I need you to. So if I don't know what I don't know at the moment, I can leave that. I don't want to hear about it because I would have to act on it, basically.
Yeah.
As well. So it was a bit of both, wasn't it?
So then...
So yes.
Yo-Yo appeared and said basically something had happened, and then it was all to do with... We got a hit on surveillance to do with this fake Coulson and his team, and May was very quick to sort of say, it's not Coulson, when they were going, it looks just like Coulson. It's not him. That's not him.
Yes.
Don't call him that. We don't call him that. We have to think of a different name for him and all of this stuff. And it was because they had also got the body had been brought in of this guy that had been killed. And they examined him, and the doctor guy, the new edition, he was like, I've never seen anything like this. And he was on about all of the crystal sort of structure that was coming out of this guy's face and things like that. And said about having to investigate him. And when they cut him open to do the autopsy, there was this weird thing in his chest cavity that the knife was going through. And it's like, what the hell is that? And to cut a long story short, because there was a lot of sort of backwards and forwards dialogue and little sort of incidental moments, but they pulled the knife out, and this thing wasn't dead. It was a creature, and it was like
a bird thing,
a bird bat thing, yeah.
Yeah, flew out of him.
And it was then the episode became very like Aliens because it flew away and it went into the ventilation system. And then they were trying to catch it, and they were going around the base trying to catch it and stuff. And there was a whole moment I thought. There was this random girl that was with Keller and Yo-Yo, and I thought, oh, she should be wearing a red shirt like they do in Star Trek, because we don't know who she is. She's clearly going to die, but I got that wrong because she didn't. But then they found this thing, and it flew into Keller's mouth and went inside him.
Yeah, that was horrible.
That was very horrible. And then,
so he's only been in it 5 minutes and he's going to die.
And that was what I saw coming, because when they had the whole bit with him and Mac, and so I said to Zoe at the time, I didn't expect it in this episode, but I said, I like him. He's a really nice, honourable man, and he's a really nice addition to the team. And as a result of that, I don't think he's going to make it to the end of the series. I just had, no, based on what TV's like, I thought he's too nice and too honourable and too decent. I don't think he's going to live to the end of the show.
Just like Babyface on the first episode.
Yeah, exactly.
And they were a team, weren't they? They were the two new guys that came together.
Yep.
How weird was that? So so that thing was inside him, and they were trying to sedate him so they could do something to get it out of him.
Mm-hmm.
And then we thought he was dead, and then all these spikes came out of him.
And he sort of became, it was almost like he was like a zombie. It was like controlling him, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Because he flatlined, didn't he? Didn't he flatline? They were doing all these things to try and save his life, and then the machine just went, boo, and it's like, oh my god, he's dead. But then he woke up.
And then all these things came out of him.
And then they discovered also as well, during the process of all of the examinations and the autopsies and that, this thing also acted as like a bomb. So it was like an organic bomb. So they were like, we need to move him here, we need to get his temperature down, and we need to get him somewhere cooler. But when they were trying to transport him, he sort of broke free of his bonds. And that bit was disgusting. When like you said, all the spike stuff burst out of him, and it like elongated his arms and his legs and stuff. It like ripped his body apart. But it was like these like crystal structures in between where his arms should have been and things. Oh, it was really gross.
It was horrible. It's awful.
It was like something out of The Thing, out of John Carpenter's The Thing.
That was it.
With all the weird kind of body horror. But yeah, and then he attached himself into the corner, and then they were like, he's going to explode.
Yeah.
So Yo-Yo did the only thing she could do, and that was to kill him.
Yeah.
And it was almost like just before,
it's awful, wasn't it?
Yeah, just before that happened, you got his eyes. It was almost like he was still in there.
Yeah.
Because he sort of looked at her as if to say, "You, this is what you've got to do."
Yeah.
And I thought,
because the bit of him that was really there, she had to put him out of his misery, didn't she?
Yeah,
so...
but it was horrible because he was still
I know.
somehow conscious in the background of all of that.
It was horrible.
So that was all really, really horrible. But then I was questioning, I was confused because I thought, that creature, was it inside that man all along? Or was it from that dagger that they stabbed him with? Did it somehow inject that creature into him?
Kill him.
Was this part of their plan? Were they hoping, SHIELD will probably detect this and come and take him away? And then that'll blow them all up and that'll take care of them so we don't have to deal with them? Or was the creature inside the man all along, and that's the reason that they killed him, because they were like, you're a threat, you don't belong here, you need to be eliminated. It's hard to tell.
Yeah, he's a danger, isn't he? Because that thing is in him, which could, like you say, do that. So yeah, it's hard to know which way they were going with that, wasn't it?
Yeah. So in the meantime, they the whole thing back at Deke's business is all going a bit pear-shaped, and because the big guy's there as well, and he shoots the security guard, and Deke manages to get away, and then his little buddy that seems to be his second in command, he
turns out to be a SHIELD guy.
Yep, he saves Deke, and turns out that he's an agent, and Deke's like, who are you? And he's like, so-and-so, agent of SHIELD. And it's like, oh my god, they had somebody keeping tabs on him this whole time.
They couldn't let him loose totally.
No, so I thought, well, that makes sense, I suppose. And then he radioed in the team, and then they all came because they were like, this is to do with the surveillance footage, we know where they are now, so we're going to go and deal with this. So they all show up, and it's all like badass stuff, Mac being all big hero guy, and May
said she's going after the girl.
Yeah, so that we had that cool bit where May confronted, what's her name, Snowflake. And they had a really cool fight sequence. And it's weird because Snowflake seems to like her in a way, because she's like, oh, you don't like you like hand-to-hand combat, and you're a badass, and I like fighting. And so even though they're on opposite sides, it's kind of like a bit of respect for May, of like what she is as a fighter and as a warrior. So yeah, they were dealing with that. Then the other guy, the younger, the one that's been flip-flopping a little bit with Sarge's team, he got dealt with by Mac and Deke.
Yeah.
And then the girl came back with the bubble tea and
with
didn't know
Bobo.
what was going on. And she's like, what's happening? And he's like, we're under attack. And he's like, are you filming this? And she's like, yeah, I have to film all of everything. So she was like filming all this stuff because she got stuck in the toilets. That's right, because they got Deke out of there initially. And then she was in there and she phoned him, and he's like, snuck off the SHIELD helicarrier and got back into the building, and then he found her in the bathroom, and then that's when he was trying to lead her to safety, and that's when Mac showed up and they had the deal with the
Big
younger
guy.
guy, and then the big guy showed up as well, and it's like, oh my god, it's all kicking off. And in between that, May was fighting this snowflake girl, and they were backwards and forwards with the knives, and then some cool moves out of May, like that clothesline she did and turned her inside out was amazing.
I marked that down. Clothesline,
yeah. I mean, they have some good fight sequences in this program.
I do, yeah.
The choreography is very well done. So that was awesome. But then just when it looked like May had the upper hand, Coulson appeared. Because she said about, what did she say? She looked up at her and wiped blood from her mouth or something and said, yeah, although, we don't like toys, but he does. And then Sarge was stood behind her with the gun. It's like, oh no. So they captured May.
Yeah, they captured May. And then Deke shot the other guy, didn't he? He shot the little guy.
Yeah.
And then the big guy, they trapped him in Deke's virtual world, didn't they?
Yeah, because he said, I've got an idea, follow me. So the big guy was chasing them, and then he ran into this room, and then everything changed. And the next thing, he was in that hallway, the virtual Daisy came out and said, what took you so long? And all of this stuff. Slapped him around the face and that, and then it showed them, and he was laid on the floor, and they were watching it. And then Mac just looked at him as if he was disgusted. Just as if to say, really? And then he went,
you've made it.
Don't tell anybody about this, and I'll give you 2% of the profits.
And then we saw Coulson. He had May tied up, didn't he?
Yeah, in the back of their big lorry thing.
Yeah.
And then he said about he was taking her somewhere because she asked him some questions, and he said, "You're going to get everything you need to know. I'm going to explain to you." And he said, like I have to show you or something like it was like I have to show you something, or don't worry, all your questions will be answered, or something like that. So it's like, where are they taking her? What is his plan with her? And also, he's keeping her. What's interesting is the fact he's keeping her alive.
Yeah.
Clearly, because there's this connection. It's like, well, he doesn't know her, but she knows him, sort of. And when she called him Coulson, it seemed to trigger something in him. So he's clearly intrigued now as to what the link is between him and someone else that looks like him.
Plus all the stuff that Deke fed him.
Yeah.
Now as well, on top of all that. Because I think Deke mentioned May, didn't he, to him?
And he also said about, so they managed to save you, and he's like, yeah, I guess they did, and he's like, I can't believe that, I thought you were going to be dead, and, he talked all these specifics about what happened with Coulson. So, yeah, this guy's probably now wondering, I want more answers, because I'm really confused by what's going on here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so that basically was it, wasn't it? And then we had the last bit.
A little extra bit.
Which was so funny because they normally, they do the "we'll continue," and we normally get a little teaser for what's coming next. But instead, it was a day in the life of Deke's girlfriend.
I know, that weird video at the end.
Yeah, and we got to see all the events of the episode, but from her perspective on her Instagram. And then in the end, it looked like she'd fallen in love with the young guy, the Asian agent that was undercover.
Yeah.
Because then she was sharing boba with him and all these things going dreamboat and new love, hashtag new love and all of this kind of stuff. And it was it's so funny.
It was.
I was just like, what really a random ending.
I know. I thought, what's this? And I thought, what's going to happen at the end of this bit? Nothing. Oh, okay. It's just a weird video.
But I tell you something. I am loving so far so good with this new season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because they're trying so many new and different things. And then, you've still got what makes S.H.I.E.L.D. what it's always been. So you've still got that at the core and all the stuff to do with the team and the new mystery storyline. But then you've got all these really cool concepts for episodes, like having all of this stuff this week with the tech company and the Instagram, the social media world. All of that at the backdrop of it was quite funny. And then the week before with the whole girls' night out, going to a casino, all of these sort of things. It's like they're trying all of these cool ideas that they've not done before on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
But they don't take away any of the excitement, does it?
No.
Which is good. It's not just like, this is a really crazy episode like last week.
Yeah.
There was still excitement in it. There was still a meaning to the plot, wasn't there? So, yeah, it's really good. I love it.
Yeah.
Favourite programme.
But, I mean, it's like...
I've not watched any of the Marvel films, but I love this. It's my favourite of everything. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
The episode gave us a lot, but at the same time, it also threw out a whole bunch more questions.
Definitely. Like you said before about the fact that it could be connected they're connected to those people that are chasing Fitz as well. And obviously, are they just a cleanup crew, or what else is their agenda? Like, ooh.
And then also this thing about the whatever that swirling swarm of stuff that was destroying the planet in that recording was, is that part of their cleanup thing as well? Did they summon whatever this thing is and go, right now, you know, because of whether it's to do with time or whether it's to do with dimensional incursions or whatever, they're like, right, we've done what we have to do, now we have to destroy this world and then move on.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, there's just so many questions.
I know, it's brilliant.
Oh, I don't know.
Have any of our followers don't watch this, do they, at the moment?
No, well, there's not really many people that have commented on SHIELD. Yeah, it seems to be quite a few people don't watch SHIELD, which is a shame. Because there's so much
They're missing
cool
out
stuff
on a
in it.
really good, exciting programme.
I know, and it's because it's such cool, high-concept, sci-fi, comic book stuff, you know?
Yeah, I
Like
agree.
I said, some of the best fight scenes in a TV show as well.
At least the special effects are always good in this one.
Yeah, definitely. They've definitely got a good budget.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
But yeah, there you go.
There you go. So that's everything for this week. So it's been a very exciting week, and we've had some really cool returns and debuts, and yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, all in all.
So I'm hoping to get some good comments, and I'm hoping that everybody enjoys this as much as we enjoyed watching the programmes and recording this podcast.
Yeah, me too.
So
yeah, it's been good. I'm very good this week.
And I have more news. So along with the news of the Lucifer renewal, I have more news in that it looks like it won't be next week's podcast, but the week after, we will have another show to add into talking about.
Ooh.
Potentially. Well, I mean, we haven't. You and I have to decide this off air for definite, but potentially, the final season of Jessica Jones starts on the 14th of June.
Oh.
Jessica
Jones. They're good programs, those ones.
Yeah. So maybe we throw that into the mix as well. So again, maybe we could put that open to the people as well and say, you know, how do you feel about us chatting about that, seeing as it's the final ever, for the time being anyway, it's the final ever Netflix Marvel show. And Jessica Jones has been consistently good, like out of all the shows with the detective stuff and everything. So it'd also be something a little bit different from the other programs we're discussing.
Yeah. We'll make a concrete decision as well then.
Yeah. I mean, we've still got a whole other week yet, because although it starts next Friday, that will be when we're recording, so it won't have already been available.
It won't go on until the next one anyway, will it? Yeah, that's right.
So we've got a little while to make a definitive decision.
Yep.
So that's going to do it, guys. So just a reminder from the beginning of the show is that if you've enjoyed this with us today, then please leave us a like. Hit that thumbs up button, because that's really good for us, and also leave comments down below. As we've mentioned several times, we love to hear from you guys, and we love your take on the things we're talking about and your perspective. And as we've said previously, you know, we'll mention you like we did at the beginning with Plastic Koala. You know, we will mention you on the podcast, so if you get a good comment in, we'll talk about it. And also subscribe to the channel as well. Help us grow bigger and bigger so that we can do bigger and more exciting things. And check out the description box for my link to my Twitter, so you can come and carry on the conversation there and chat to me and follow me. And the donation mediums. If you feel like we're doing a good job, you want to help out in some way towards equipment or anything like that, supporting the channel and the podcast, you've got links there for different donation mediums. I would push you more towards Ko-fi than Patreon. I mean, both are good, but Ko-fi's a little bit more friendly. But it's up to you what you do. And that'll do it for this week. So thank you once again, Mother, for being my co-host.
You're very welcome. Yes, very welcome.
It's been fun. And hopefully I won't have an issue with the editing this week, and we'll get this out on time. So there we go, guys. So all there is left to say is, you take care now. Bye-bye!
Bye, 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 bye.